Pranakasha live stream.
Hey folks, it's Matt at Pranakasha Productions, and today we are talking with Matt Bartlett, otherwise known as the Final Counselor. Did I say that right?
Yeah, yep, dead on. Yeah.
Fellow Twitcherer, and also I found Matt on Twitch, and then I believe you're also a YouTuber, right?
No, not yet. No, I haven't ventured quite that far out yet. I've ventured every place else though. So.
Okay, future YouTuber, cosplayer.
Yes.
Horror and gaming enthusiast.
Yep.
And then I think actor too, right?
Yep. Actor, singer, writer.
Oh, singer.
I try to be like all over the place. Oh yeah. Listen, if you can find a hobby, I've dug into it a little bit. So.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
What kind of singing?
Oh gosh, I did mostly. I mean, I don't really do anything like professionally anymore, but I did musical theater from like high school till, oh gosh, probably I think my last show was maybe like 2010-ish, 2011-ish or so.
Okay.
But I still, enjoy singing. I just haven't had the chance to get on stage or anything yet. But
would you consider yourself a tenor or
baritone?
Baritone.
Or like a baritone bass. Like I can't hit those higher notes anymore. But
okay, that's about where I'm at too. Like, I mean, once I get up to like an E, that's about where my break is.
Oh God, I'm so bad with that. I trust you on that. I just am so bad with notes.
Oh.
I know.
Well, anyway. So did you ever do Grease?
I didn't. I saw a couple of productions and I really liked the stage show of it. But I never did Grease. Did you?
No, I do a little bit of acting on screen, basically on my YouTube channel with my Star Trek thing.
I've seen.
Oh, that's Captain Hardinger.
Yes.
That was my uniform back there. But I've actually, that's the future uniform. It's actually more like a velour one. So the next, not episode 4, but episode 5, he'll actually be presented with that. So he hasn't actually worn it yet.
Ooh.
Anyways, I mean, I did a little bit of stage acting. Like in 4th grade, I was a jester in the school play.
Okay.
And so I danced across the stage and did cartwheels. But I didn't have any lines.
Hey, you know what though? Listen, everyone loves a jester in a show. So like the cartwheels, you didn't need lines. You were fine.
Yeah, just look into the camera and do a cartwheel. Wow. Okay. So, and then you said you were a writer too.
Yep. I started writing screenplays back when I had a typewriter before computers were like cool or a thing. And yeah, now I do, I do some fiction here and there. I still dabble in screenplays a little bit, but haven't really done anything. I do some horror reviews and stuff for a couple of websites every so often. So, again, dabbling a little bit of everywhere.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have like a website or a blog or something like that where people can like see your stuff?
I don't anymore, unfortunately. Like I said, I for like freelance now for a couple of places. Horror DNA is the one that I usually work for right now. I've done a couple of articles for them so far, and I'm working my way into working more with them.
Oh, okay. So if we Googled Matt Bartlett, would one of your articles come up, do you think?
Possibly. Something from my old blog actually might come up. I did have one and I archived it, but you can still find pages every so often. So you might.
Okay.
Mostly video game reviews and stuff like that at that point. But
cool.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I'm basically a sci-fi guy. So yes. I like Star Trek and the Orville. Hopefully you're watching the Orville season 3.
I'm not, but I have heard from so many people that I need to, and it is on my very, very short list to get to. I'm very excited to check it out. I like the cast that I've seen. I like some of the scenes I've seen. I just need to actually sit down and watch it.
Yeah, it really rocks. I don't know if you've watched the other previous seasons.
No,
really good. Season 3 is super good. Though It's all good. Once Orville took a little bit for it to get off the ground, and for people to realize that it wasn't just, like Family Guy in space or something like that. It was actually really a Star Trek show, basically. In fact, when the Orville came out and people started realizing what it really was, lots of people, including me, were saying, well, this is actually better than the current Star Trek. This is better Star Trek than Star Trek.
That's awesome. I heard that I heard that from I have a lot of sci-fi fans around me, so I'm surprised I haven't seen it. But yeah, they were like, no, this is, because I had the same thing. I thought it was sort of just Family Guy in space. And then they're like, no, like,
it's good.
Seth's a big fan of like Star Trek. He wanted to make a Star Trek show. So it looks really good.
Yeah. When you see it, you're like, oh, this is really based on the Next Generation. Just the way the set looks and the lighting and the whole sort of mystique of it and everything. And so it's pretty obvious. They don't straight up say it because they can't just flat out admit it because the legal team probably won't let them. But it's just obvious that that's what it is. But wow, yeah, now with Strange New Worlds, now they've got some competition, because I assume you've watched Strange New Worlds, right?
I didn't grow up on sci-fi. I'm trying to get into it. I've got people getting me into it. So, sorry. Strange New Worlds is another one. No. By all means, I love hearing people talk about it. So, please tell me everything that you're excited about.
It's super good.
That one again. I've seen a couple of scenes, and I'm like, oh, this actually looks really good. Like, I have seen a number of the Next Generation episodes. That's how I've been starting. And I've been enjoying it. So I've got my gateway drug. I just need to get to the rest.
Okay. Have you seen any of the original series?
I haven't. Maybe an episode here or there. Okay. Do you have any recommendations? Do you have any?
Yeah, there's a lot. Well, there's like a top 10 list of original series episodes. Balance of Terror is really good. And that is in the top 10 for most people. Also, the one called The Doomsday Machine, where it's got this giant sausage thing flying through the air that eats planets.
That does sound familiar.
Yeah.
Yep. And the giant sausage thing eating planets. Yep. That's
Trouble with Tribbles, where they got all these little cute fuzzy things like rabbits that don't have arms or ears or a mouth or a nose or face. And and so on. Okay, so how about what we can do is I'm going to retreat prior to Star Trek, and I'm going to go to a show that Star Trek was born out of that could be considered horror in some sense, and that would be The Twilight Zone.
All right, I did watch a bunch of Twilight Zone episodes to study for a show, weirdly enough. I started getting into that because we were doing a radio play, and they were talking about the acting style, so I started getting into that. Yeah, no, I can see that. Okay. I think.
So I've seen some of those. See, here's my deal. I'm honestly not really I wouldn't consider myself a fan of horror.
Okay.
So,
that's fair. There's plenty of room to meet in the middle, though.
Right.
I've seen. I'll admit, most of my sci-fi experience is video games. Be very honest with you. I played more Star Trek video games than I've probably seen hours of Star Trek itself when I was growing up. I loved the aesthetic, the characters. For whatever reason, I never watched the show, but was a big fan of Troy and Beverly Crusher, and I just and the rest of the crew, obviously. But I don't know, those characters that drew me to it. Okay. And I've seen some sci-fi stuff. I've seen a few movies. I love sci-fi movies. Or I love some of the movies that I've seen. What I've gotten the chance to see, and I have seen some shows like Firefly with sci-fi elements to it that have sort of a different spin to them. It's I have dabbled in sci-fi. How
about Alien?
So I've seen. It's funny. I'm on a mission right now. I've watched the first 3 movies, and I'm on a mission to watch the rest of the series now because a friend of mine is a huge fan of it, and has been explaining it to me. Again, I have everyone explaining the backstories of these things. I'm like, this sounds so cool. Why am I not watching this? There's only so many hours in the day.
That's true. That is true.
But again, it's like the tone and the like, I don't know. It's just very cool. I like the, what was it? Not the retro aesthetic. Maybe that's what it is that Next Generation has. I forget. There's an actual term for it that I can't remember. My friend explained it to me recently, but I was like, yeah, no, that's the aesthetic that I like. Like it all sort of like looks like it's out of the 80s, even though it's in the in the far future.
Well, yeah, you'll really get that in the original series.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you this. So you are a fan of horror. So could you explain to me, who's not really a horror fan, what's the appeal?
So I find that this is different for everybody.
Okay.
I think that the general appeal that I see for people who aren't fans, who either become fans or are not fans because of this reason, is that horror is a way to experience a particular emotion without actually being in danger.
Okay.
So like there's sort of this, heightened sense of fear or anxiety, which, why would you willingly go into that? I totally understand that. And, there's some stories. There's a lot of allegories in there, much like sci-fi. I think that there's actually a lot of similarities between sci-fi and horror, which is, again, why I'm shocked I'm not a bigger sci-fi fan. There's a lot of allegories in there of, like diversity and a number of other things that sort of come through in both genres. But you sort of get that heightened sense of, like a comedy makes you laugh a lot. Romance makes you like, even if you're not in a relationship or you're not feeling romantic, it makes you feel very like romantic. And horror sort of takes your mind away from the current fears of your life or the world and gives you these fears that are right in front of you that you can experience, and they're resolved, and then you can move on. And there's that catharsis of like, you feel kind of like, okay, like things are okay for now. And then there's usually a question mark so that they can sell 10 more movies. But I don't know, there's something about like sort of that swoop I've seen that at the very least, I have a number of people who come to the channel who aren't horror fans.
Okay.
But they loved watching it, and they love watching someone else experience it. Either there's some level of schadenfreude there where they're like, they just like seeing somebody else sort of suffer. Or it's a matter of, it's another step back of separation from the terror. So there's someone else in between the terror and them to sort of take that, and they can experience that emotion. Because I think, not to get super, super deep about it, but I think people like experiencing different emotions. And when you can fabricate fear rather than have the real stuff with whatever you're dealing with in XYZ situation in your life,
right?
It kind of supplements that, I think.
Okay. All right. I guess that kind of makes sense. And then obviously there's just an endorphin rush when you have that amount of fear. How about this one? Like, when did you discover or declare that I, Matt Bartlett, am a horror fan?
So quick anecdote, if I can.
Be my guest.
When I was young, I want to say it was like 4th or 5th grade. Probably way too young to be watching horror movies, but I was in a controlled environment with my mother who loved horror movies growing up. To think of it what you will, it's very safe. There was a lot of eye covering going on. But I went up to the movie store, the video store, and I was like, you know what? I want to rent this movie. I think it was because there was a group of high schoolers over, like, looking at the horror section at Blockbuster way back when people rented videos.
I remember Blockbuster.
Right? Like local video stores. But this just happened to be at a Blockbuster. And I was already sort of a mystery fan. So, like, I loved mystery books, and it was just sort of like a half step away. So I was like, I want to rent this movie. Got the original Friday the 13th. We sat down and watched it. Again, a lot of eyes, like hands in front of the eyes going on and stuff like that. But there was something about it was just very different. Like, it was very like, I grew up on comedies, which, I have those. I grew up on, again, mysteries, and it was just like a very different thing. For some reason, it just caught on, and I started reading, Stephen King and some of the classic horror people, because I was a huge reader back then too. And like over the course of the summer, over the course of my summer vacation, this is both very bad and very good, I guess. I watched, I think I had kept track, like in my little notebook, about 250 horror movies.
Wow.
Ranging the gamut from like very, very banal to very like, yeah, I was going to say, if you put the hours to that,
that's like 3 a day.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of friends growing up.
Wow.
So, I really got into it, really, like I got a fixation.
Okay.
And then like, I don't know, I just sort of started like studying how they worked and how they were put together and the structures and tropes and things like that. And I guess I just sort of became a fan over the course of that. I guess I just sort of jumped into the deep end and didn't look back.
Now, is your mom proud of you, or does she think, maybe I shouldn't have shown him that?
No, she actually, it's funny. We still talk plenty, and she'll be like, oh yeah, I saw this like ghost hunting special. I thought that think was really interesting. And I saw this like, ooh, go on.
Speaking of ghost hunting specials, did you know that Wesley Ure has a ghost hunting series that he's pitching right now?
I did not.
Wesley Ure is, I'm probably pronouncing his last name wrong.
Sounds familiar.
But he's the actor who played Will of Will and Holly on Land of the Lost. I don't know if you ever saw that show.
Yep. I definitely did. Yep. Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
I interviewed him a while ago, and he's doing. You'd probably like this. I'll put it in the link. It's a show. It's called Naked Truth or something like that, where what they do is they go into these haunted houses, and they're specifically trying to capture the experience of a ghost touching you.
Interesting. Okay.
So like they have these somehow, and here's the best part. It's like for a reality show is that the people that are doing the investigating have to be completely naked. So all their skin is exposed, I guess, to entice the ghosts.
Gosh.
And then when the ghost touches them, somehow their equipment actually registers it. So that's like their show.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a whole bunch of different things I didn't expect, but I'm actually really intrigued by like how that would work.
Yeah. I'll put the link. I'm not sure if it's out yet because I talked to him a few months ago and it was just being released. So hopefully by now it is. So yeah.
All right.
So so does that count? I mean, does real life horror count? Because since it's real, it's not really escapism anymore.
I mean, that depends on what the person who's there thinks, though. Because, like, if I go in there, like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, ghosts are a thing. Ghosts are totally, like, I can see it, like, nothing's proven to me that they're not. Mm-hmm. So, like, if I was going into some place, like, yeah, that would be for me. But some people go in there with the express thought of, like, no, this isn't real. It's just atmosphere. It's whatever. But I'm going to get the thrill of being in this place by myself in the dark. Whatever that, I'd have a different feel on that, but someone else might just be like, yeah, no, I'm just going to like go there. I'm going to prove it wrong. And like, I'm just going to walk through this like abandoned place and it's going to be kind of creepy, but like nothing's in there. And so, I mean, I guess if you go in there, like it's still a little bit escapism kind of, but like, I think it's sort of, yeah, you're right. It sort of toes the line and sort of steps over it a little bit. At that point, because you get into like being touched by ghosts or like, if you go so far as like possession or, like feeling like the cold of like something passing through you. Yeah. Then it's a little more like safe, but not really. So no, that's a good point.
Okay. So would you consider yourself a typical horror enthusiast?
Yeah, probably. I mean, like compared to the people I've met before. Yeah, probably.
And so how do you go to bed at night? Like, if you let's just say when you lived alone, I don't know if you have a partner or not right now, but when you lived alone, how were you able to turn off the light and go to sleep without all these horrible things that you witnessed on TV or on the movies suddenly filling your mind and, disturbing you?
So like well, I guess there's two things to that. There's the sort of in-depth answer, and then there's the sort of, I guess, sort of funny answer that's also true. The in-depth answer is I've done like some studying about the makeup techniques and stuff like that they used in the 80s. And from a very young age, I had a very good like separation of like, this is what's fake and this is what's real. And I guess sort of studying it, when you study something and you get to know it more, it scares you less.
Okay.
In general. So that's sort of like my in-depth, like writing it and reading a lot of it and, saturating yourself in it. You sort of get not numb, but like understanding that a lot of it is fake. The other answer is I go to bed with the Golden Girls on and and something funny usually. Actually, I usually fall asleep to comedy stuff now that I think about it. So it's, it's not like I don't like think about horror all the time. I have so many nerdy interests, but I tend to go to bed to something funny. Which is weird now that I'm thinking about it. Sorry, now you got me thinking, but yeah.
Okay. Golden Girls.
Yes.
Now you can tell me what is the appeal to that show, because my wife loves it. So many people love that show. And I watch it and it's funny, but it's not in my top 10, but for some people it totally is.
So what I would say, at least when I got into it, it was in college.
Okay.
And that was like the first time a lot of us were away from our parents. And I think that it was a surrogate for parents. I think we had these four older women who were, they were very maternal. They were also very sassy. They were very like, it was just sort of comforting to watch them interact. It's almost always like a very well-written show as well. It's sort of, it's sort of not transcended, but it's sort of like stood up over time, like a lot of shows from that time tend to.
Okay.
I do know that also for me and other folks, for whatever reason, there's a huge LGBT, there we go, following for the show. Maybe again, it's the maternal thing. Maybe it's I'm not 100% where it comes from, but it's something I bonded with a lot of people with. So, I mean, I don't know. There's plenty of other shows that like, I get why people love it. And I get why people are sort of like, yeah, this is all right. But like, it's not, like you said, not top 10 by any means. My partner at the moment, it's not top 10.
Yeah. Like there's no spaceships in it for one thing.
Hey, they had a UFO episode.
Oh, they did. Okay.
See, sci-fi. There we go. We can go back. Listen, every show has like a UFO type of. Hey, even horror has gone out into space plenty.
Even
of times.
Happy Days has UFOs in it.
Even Happy Days had, yeah. See,
and then it had a major spinoff as a result.
and I grew up on Mork and Mindy too. I watched that so much growing up. Oh, I loved Robin Williams and Pam Dauber in that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh, wow.
See, there's plenty of overlap.
That's true. Okay, so if you're a horror fan, it's not like you're 90% horror. You're maybe 20% horror, 25% horror if you actually did a pie chart.
If we're talking like genre-wise, I'd probably be like 50, 60%.
Okay.
But there's a lot in that other 50 to 40% in there as well. Oh gosh. So it's kind of like a subgenre. Like there's usually an element of horror because people are biting each other. That's not something that, but then you get like, there's so many vampire romance books, for instance, or there's a lot of vampire drama books that don't really focus on like the horror parts of it. I guess just like any other genre, there's like a bunch of different sort of subgenres that you can branch off into, and then again, and it's been a while, I think, since I've watched anything vampire wise. I grew up on some of the Anne Rice and the old stuff like that, but
Right.
yeah, it's and then Twilight came and just everything
Took
barreled
off.
off from there for folks.
Okay. Cool. All right. So you're also a cosplayer. Now I'm assuming most of your cosplay is going to be horror related too, right?
Yes and no. I've been branching out a little bit.
Okay.
I've been getting into, I mean, it's pretty much all video game related at the very least.
Okay.
But I've been branching out into things like Fallout, which is like an apocalyptic, like post-apocalyptic type thing.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. There have been a couple of others. I've done actually some more. I don't want to say kids because a lot of again escapism. A lot of grown-ups are playing a lot of these sort of games that are sort of targeted toward younger folks. But I've done some kid-friendly ones, I should say, because I have a godson that I sometimes go to conventions around, and I want him to have a good time with them too. And don't want to scare him pretty much.
Okay. Speaking of horrifying kids shows, did you ever watch My Little Pony?
I did not actually. That was sort of just outside of my wheelhouse.
Okay.
But we can go back to sci-fi.
Okay.
We can go back to sci-fi because one show that I really loved growing up, and you probably know because you're a big sci-fi fan, but not many people do. There was a show called Space Cases growing up, where it was like this class of kids from all the planets in the solar system, and they were on the ship, and they got I think they got sucked into a wormhole or something. It's sort of like a classic intro to sci-fi show.
Okay.
But they all have this sort of, they have their quirks and they all have to get along, and they're all and every episode was sort of a different situation that they were in. But I grew up loving that show, and it had the alien worlds and it had all that other stuff, and so I had a good sci-fi introduction at the very least when I was a kid.
That's
and
cool.
If you haven't seen it,
I haven't. Is it animated or?
No, it's live action.
Really?
Yeah, it had actually Jewel State, who ended up going on to Firefly, was one of the main characters when she was much younger.
Oh, Jewel. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. I have no idea. When did that show come out?
I want to say, oh God, it had to have been early 90s, probably. Okay. And it was one of sort of the Canadian import shows that we got that came over on the kids channels.
Okay.
But it was, yeah, it ran for, I want to say 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, I probably missed it because my first child, my youngest, was born in 95. So maybe the show had already ended.
I was going to say it may have at the very least been out of it sort of came and went.
Okay.
Kids sort of grab a show that they love and then it sort of disappears and then they obsess over it for years. And that's why I still remember the theme song and everything.
Right.
Like that. So.
I mean, the reason why I know My Little Pony or SpongeBob or Avatar or any of those shows that were in the early to mid 2000s is because my kids were old enough now to want to watch all those shows. So I ended up watching them with them.
That's fair.
So,
That's fair.
Oh,
did you ever? Go ahead.
So did you get into anime at all?
I've gotten more into it lately, weirdly enough. Doing quarantine stuff sort of again had me checking out a lot of things that I wasn't really super into. So I have been getting into it. Did you have it? Did you have anything that you were gonna?
Yeah, there was a show. There's an anime movie called Kiki's Delivery Service that I've watched 1 million times that I just totally love.
I saw that a little while ago. I want to see it again. One of my friends who introduced me way back when to anime, that was sort of in a small pocket of watching those movies, but that's a super cute movie. I like that movie. I
think you'd really dig it because it's about Kiki, who's a young witch who's just becoming a teenager, and part of being a witch is you have to go leave and fly off with your broomstick and your black cat into new adventures, and And because she was a good witch, she had to go just do something helpful,
Yep.
for humanity. And it's just like,
Look at it.
and it goes from there. I mean, it's just a great movie.
It's
And she meets a boy,
of course they always do.
and so on.
That's so funny.
Yeah. Oh, boy. So I'm trying to think. I don't know how I ran across you. Somehow I ran into your Twitch channel.
I wish I could remember, because I remember seeing it was related to I want to say it was related to some show or a game that I posted that was Star Trek, or maybe it was like Star Wars related or something.
It was a sci-fi sort of game you were doing. I still have no idea how. Maybe just Twitch happened to suggest your channel and I clicked on it by accident. I don't know. But I watched it and I started commenting and I was like totally free associating.
Yeah.
And there was this thing.
It was fun.
It was like, I remember there was this diesel engine that kept showing up in the game. But for some reason, there was something wrong with the way the pistons worked, something about it that bugged me. And I was just constantly going back to that all the time about, do you remember what that game was?
Oh, it could have been.
So it was some kind of steampunk type of a game, I guess, since it had a diesel engine in it, but it was sci-fi.
I wish I could remember. I remember you being there, and I remember you like, again, free associating essentially. And I was like, man, this guy's lively. Okay. All right. I dig this vibe. And then you were like, oh, I hope I'm not talking too much. I was like, no. Like, thank you.
Right.
So much. Like,
Yeah. I was afraid I was going to derail the whole thing.
No.
I was just totally going off that day.
That's the thing. I remember really digging your vibe and being like, okay. And then one thing led to another. And now I keep seeing posts and wanting to check more things out.
Well, a lot of times when I tweet, a lot of times I started tagging you in a lot of my tweets,
which I appreciate seeing them by all means. It helps me a lot because I can be like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I get this, and then I see when you put up new things and get the chance to watch them when I can. Yeah. So
yeah, it's fun.
It's so weird how you can just like randomly run across people in like a certain moment and just be like, yeah, no, like I can kind of gel with this person.
Well, I knew I liked you. Well, when I realized your name was Matt. So I have this theory that all Matts have this certain kind of indescribable personality trait but when you see a Matt, you're like, yeah, he's got it,
Okay.
So I call it like the Matt Man. Like you're a Matt Man.
So, that's a plot for a sci-fi right there. The bond there.
Yeah, or it could be a crossover horror. Stephen King. See, like for me, Stephen King, I'm not an expert, obviously, but the thing about his is that his books and the films that are done well always have a strong element of social commentary in it. Mm-hmm. Which is the same thing that sci-fi has.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what makes it interesting is once you start picking up on the message that's being delivered, Yeah.
And that's also what's appealed to me. Like I said, not to reiterate a point, but that's also what's appealed to me about sci-fi is that a lot of the messages there's a lot of very similar messages. It's very worth it. I was talking about a sci-fi movie today, actually, with somebody because they brought up something that they had seen. And I was like, oh, have you ever seen, it was Contact.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because I loved that movie.
Yeah, that's great.
That and Interstellar took up my whole
Jodie Foster.
Oh, yeah. That too. It was that Interstellar that I saw around the same time. And there was another one that I can't remember. It was with Amy Adams. Came out really recently, semi-recently, about like communicating with aliens.
Oh, I think I know which one you're talking about.
But I saw all those at the same time, and I was like, okay, like I get it. I understand the like big appeal of sci-fi. This is really cool. But again, all of them had like some sort of messages, and they had like this commentary to like latch onto, and I dug it.
Yeah. In fact, a while ago, I interviewed Mark Zickery, who is a big sci-fi writer from several decades, and he's doing. Yeah, I'll show you actually.
Yeah, please.
He's doing this. Space Command. I was just at the red carpet actually for this, like last week in LA.
All right.
And I got to go out to lunch with Mark Zickery himself, plus two of the actors on the show. One of them who was like the star.
Okay.
And anyway, he was really, his main show was Star Trek. Excuse me. He loved as a kid, but also he really loved Twilight Zone. And he became kind of like the expert on the Twilight Zone. Like he wrote a book called The Twilight Zone Companion, which goes through every single Twilight Zone episode and gives you a rundown of it. It's like an encyclopedia of Twilight Zone. And then
I love that. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
And he also got involved with Rod Serling's family and foundation so that he got access to a bunch of clips from episodes that were never aired. And so he got to go, and I think he's going to actually make a show out of it at some point. But his big thing was, he said that the whole reason why Rod Serling did Twilight Zone was for the social commentary that, in fact, originally Rod Serling wanted to do shows about current events and politics and the state of the world and humanity and stuff. But the networks wouldn't have it. It was too hard-hitting. It was too in your face. Okay. So when he realized that he wouldn't be able to pull that off in the 60s, he created the Twilight Zone to tell all these stories that would deliver the messages he wanted to deliver, but in the guise of a sci-fi show, so that the network execs would be too dumb to figure out what he was actually, dishing out.
Okay. That's smart.
Yeah.
That's very, And yeah, so many of those episodes too have messages like that. No. Yeah. Good for him. I've heard some really great stories about Rod Serling as far as like his influences and the things that he was like trying to do. So
yeah, it's such a tragedy that he died so young.
Yeah.
Because I think he was like 55 or 56 when he had a heart attack and died.
If I remember right.
I can relate to that because that's how old I am. I'm like, whoa.
Oh.
Yeah.
So young.
Yeah. So that became Mark Zickery's whole reason for writing sci-fi was, again, he loved writing social commentary too. And so, but as long as you couch it in sci-fi and aliens or somewhere in the future so that people can kind of take a step back from it, then you can say stuff that would otherwise be too offensive and they would just turn off or just not want to deal with it. Mm-hmm. But as long as it's got aliens and spaceships, then they're willing to, it's like you put a spoonful of sugar on some medicine that you're supposed to take or something like that.
Yep. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And that's, I mean, it was the same thing with the recent reboot of Twilight Zone, kind of, not spoonful of sugar, but again, Jordan Peele, who's doing some sci-fi stuff right now with social commentary. Same deal. So yeah, no, that.
How many seasons do they have at the reboot of it? Because I watched part of the first season, but I haven't.
I'm not even entirely sure. So the problem is I haven't seen any of it. I've read a lot about the behind the scenes stuff, but I didn't have access to watching it, unfortunately. Whatever it was on, I didn't.
I think it was Amazon Prime, because at the time I was watching The Expanse, and I know I had Amazon Prime for that.
It's another one I need to remember to watch. See, I'm remembering all of these things now. But yeah, I think so at the time, I don't think I had the ability to watch it just because of life circumstances and stuff like that. But I think it lasted maybe a season. Might be two, but I don't think it's still going on.
Okay. Of course, it's one of those shows, since it's got a different cast and a different setting every single week. Mm-hmm. It's not like you couldn't just start it right up again.
No.
Nope. You could just throw in a couple episodes here and then, and you don't have to have a sound stage. You don't have to have. All you need is a theme song, but you already got that from way back when.
Yep. That's true. That's true. Oh, actually, thinking real quick, there's a show that I watched that was sort of big for a little while. I don't know if they're doing it anymore, but it might. I don't know if you would consider it sci-fi. So I'm kind of intrigued because it definitely had horror elements, but it had a lot of like in the future elements and things like that. Not necessarily spaceships in all of the episodes, but a couple. But did you ever see Black Mirror?
Yeah,
At all?
a couple episodes of it.
And that had like some sci-fi elements to it, right? That was okay, cool, good.
Yeah,
I remember some of the episodes being like, there's some technology that they're doing. This isn't just like horror stuff. This is they have a lot of tones of different things in there. So
yeah.
Right.
There's so many shows. Okay, so now hard tangent into. You said you're a writer and you wrote screenplays and stuff. So, like, what would you say is like your best or your most favorite piece of fiction that you've done?
So oddly enough, it's not horror related.
Okay.
So when I was in, again, like college, like sort of going through like life in high school and college, maybe quality wise, it wasn't the best. I'll be honest, but like the time that I like threw my heart on the paper and just like let it sort of do its thing. Okay. I did this whole sort of ensemble drama comedy type thing.
Comedy.
With this guy who was that one wasn't like an analog of me. I just want to make sure. I know everyone sort of like writes themselves, but don't know why I said that. But this guy sort of like has this relationship problem. He goes off to visit his like friend from high school at their college and brings his friend, and you sort of have like the mixture of all these personalities and stuff. But I worked out a lot of stuff in that script myself, like emotionally. And I know a bunch of my friends who read it at the time, it also sort of helped them through a lot of the stuff that they did or that they were going through, who were like testing it. So I mean, as far as like the most impactful thing I've written, I feel like that's that. Never finished filming it, unfortunately, for various reasons, because college happens. But yeah, I mean, all around that, I've done a lot of sort of smaller, like horror stuff and stuff that, can be kind of proud of, but also I don't think I had as much commentary as other people had. So maybe I didn't feel as satisfied with it.
Okay. Of course, I was going to say, maybe you're a budding TikTok celebrity at some point.
I've thought about like doing some of like the smaller things that don't take out like a ton of, because I mean, I've been pumping a lot into trying to start up voice acting. Yep. I've been doing auditions. I actually have a couple of auditions I need to do tomorrow.
Great.
As well. It's been a really fun experience to like learn about. Okay. It's been a good time. Haven't booked anything yet, but
okay.
You learn something from every audition.
Wow. Okay. So, as of when you talk about voice acting, so actually, believe it or not, I actually have a acting coach who started out as my accents coach.
Okay.
Who can do like just about he can do any accent under the sun, and he can analyze it, and plus his wife also was really good at voice acting too. And yeah, I mean, I could hook you up with them. I know like there's some internet service where you can hire a voice actor. What's it called?
I can't remember. So I've seen a couple of them, but somebody sent me like the major one, and I can't remember the name of it now. It's in my links somewhere. Okay.
So are you talking about like when you say voice acting, do you mean like being a voice actor in a show, or like doing audiobooks, or what?
Well, I mean, I've been told that I have a voice for audiobooks or audio, like audiobooks and narration and stuff like that. I am working a little bit just because, again, I miss acting. I did do some like indie film stuff growing up and things like that. So I really enjoyed like the emoting and stuff like that. I've been working on trying to support sort of indie efforts on like the video game level. Again, it all comes back to get like my real first passion in life. But so I've been working a lot with working on trying to get into video games and smaller projects at the moment. So yeah, I guess like kind of shows, but like it's more like web stuff and, small games that people are putting together. Not that I don't have loftier dreams, but
Okay.
I like supporting independent efforts.
Because I mean, to have a career that actually makes some money, I think audiobooks is the best. I don't know. I believe that's true.
I've heard that actually. I've heard that, like, if you want to make more consistent money, you can find it a little more in long term in that.
Right. Of course, it's hard. I mean, you got to be really good at it because you got to fly through basically 200 pages of script, and you don't get like multiple takes unless you want to take forever on that book.
Yeah, I don't know anyone who's done it, but I worked with an author at my day job, who he's had a couple of people who have he'll put them on the book selling site, we'll say, and they'll have people audition for it, and he'll be like, yeah, it's some people just come in here and it's like not great. Some of them are great, but like there's no longevity there, or they're taking too long, or so. I mean, there is there's a standard to it for sure.
Right. I think it's probably like, it's just like construction, like, like you can learn, somebody like me or you can learn how to sheetrock their bedroom or like the kitchen or something, but it takes me like 10 times as long as a real sheetrocker would. But since I'm not getting paid by the hour, it doesn't matter. But
that's also true. That is very much true.
The worst downside is that when I go into my kitchen or bedroom, I know where every single mistake is that I made. No. I will forever see it. But anyway, wow. Okay, so like, would you be able to give us, like, do you like to do like voice characterizations, like just really?
So I'm terrible at, this is what I'm trying to work on in like my free time. So I'm terrible at doing like different voices.
Okay.
Like, you give me a broad range of like types of roles as far as, emotions and range and stuff like that.
Okay.
I think that I'm pretty solid at that. I don't want to be, I want to keep my humility, but I think I'm pretty solid at that. I've trained on that. Okay. You give me like a wacky voice or something and I'm just atrocious. I am. Okay. That is something that I think is really, it's a great skill to have. And I think that I have some folks who I'm listening to and trying to not emulate, but I'm trying to, pick up cues and stuff from. I think that you should have people that you can get that from, right, in the industry. And I'm working on it. We're all works in progress in this industry. Right. So
yeah, that's fun. Wow, that's cool. So okay. So if you're into voice acting, have you ever thought of like taking one of your screenplays and doing it as a radio play and doing the voices for it?
I have actually. I've thought about doing that, or oddly enough, they have scripts available again for some games that are out of copyright, for instance, that could also make really good radio plays. That I've been looking at too. So yeah, I've definitely thought about putting together radio plays. I've been learning how to do some audio editing just because it seems like it'd be a really good skill to have. Definitely. I've been listening to a couple of radio plays off and on, or I guess narrative fiction, or however they bill it sometimes. Mm-hmm. It's just impressive what some people do with that stuff. So it's again, learning techniques from listening and sort of trying to adapt. But yeah, no, I've definitely thought about taking some of the stuff that I've written and adapting it for that, making my own projects. I would love to do that.
Yeah. Do you think it would work? I mean, like, does your thing have a really strong visual element, or do you think some of your stuff would work as a radio play?
I think it would take adapting. I think it would, if I was going to take some of my stuff, at least some of my older stuff, first it would need to be very much revised because it's all older stuff. But I think it would take some adapting to make it a very good audio play. Mm-hmm. I'm just thinking about, horror stuff you can do, but it takes it takes a lot to make it effective. And I think that's I think that's something that would need to be worked out before that happens. It'd be a fun project for sure, though.
Okay. Interesting. Wow, that's cool.
All
right.
I think just take talents and have fun with them and go out there. And if it's something that you want to do, like, hammer down into it.
Yeah. Well, okay. I might hit you up if I need a guest star in one of my Star Trek shows.
Yeah, by all means.
Either as a live actor or as a voice actor.
Yeah, so. I'm down. I'm happy to. Oddly enough, a lot of the auditions I've been doing lately have been sci-fi related.
Oh, cool.
So it's been cool to see that too.
So how do you get these auditions? Do you have an agent, or you just go out and sniff them out yourself? Or
on Twitter, there's a couple of sites that they're just like, if people want to post their open casting calls, they put them there, and there's usually a few a day.
Oh wow.
To check out. Some of them are very specifically looking for certain types of voices. Some of them are just very, looking for a guy who can sound like he's in his 30s. I'm like, hey,
I'm that guy.
I'm that guy. But yeah, I've definitely had a couple of folks who have pointed some stuff out to me, but I've sort of just started looking into the idea of maybe finding some sort of representation. It's just a matter of, again, you've checked out this industry. Sometimes there's pitfalls. Sometimes there's people who are like, yeah, totally, just pay me $200. And I'm like, ooh, that's $200 I'm not paying for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's mostly just been like digging myself and doing some groundwork.
It seems like these days with social media and everything, that's like even like a lot of really well-known actors have figured out that if they're active on Twitter or wherever, that's where they get more and more fans and get the gigs and the notoriety. So, yeah. Whew. Cool stuff. All right. So then, all right. So I also have a day job. My day job is as an IT guy. So by day, I help people fix the computers. It's basically kind of a level 2 or 3 help desk type of thing that I've been doing forever. And right now it works out good because I get to work from home.
That's awesome.
So, yeah. And, but then I spend most of my the rest of my time, doing music and YouTube and any other crazy things I dream up.
So wait, now I feel like I remember us talking about this. You do music.
Yeah. So, well, my main instrument when I was a kid was violin.
Okay.
So I started out like when I was 4 or 5 years old doing Suzuki violin because my mom was a Suzuki violin teacher.
Okay.
Suzuki method.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And then in high school, I went to this private school in my last 2 years of high school called the Northwest School for the Arts, Humanities, and Environment. Okay. And then another school split off from that the senior year called the Seattle Academy, and I went to that. But anyways, I took a music theory class in that high school that actually was had a huge impact on me.
Oh, cool.
And in fact, the very first assignment, we had to go write a piece in the Dorian mode. I don't know if that means anything to you, but
it sounds super familiar.
I ended up writing this little piece that was really cool. And then I turned it into a string quartet, and even when I go back and listen to it now, I'm like, that's a cool little piece. So from that day forward, I realized that I could be a composer and compose music. And cool. And then years later, my big thing is I just completed a cello concerto and performed it with an orchestra and put the first 2 movements on my YouTube channel after 10 years worth of work. And so from that fateful day in high school where I learned how to write in the Dorian mode till now, that's one of the creative things that I really like to do is write music. Yeah. So, and of course, Captain Hardinger in my Star Trek show always carries a cello around with him everywhere. And the thing that my show has, which is a great advantage over every other show out there, is that when my actors play an instrument, they really play it. They're not faking it.
All right. Okay,
So like,
good.
I really know how to play the cello. So Captain Hardinger, when he plays the cello, I'm really playing it. And
Okay.
then
Cool.
JP, Egotastic Fun Time.
Okay, yep.
Now he's called Talking the Orville. When he plays guitar, he's really playing it. And when he's singing, he's really singing. And so that's how it goes.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's really fun. Anyway, so that's how I survive. I have a day job that has a steady income and everything. So I don't have to worry about my creative stuff actually making money. In fact, to tell you the truth, I still put more money into my YouTube channel than I get from being monetized. So I'm waiting for the day when my YouTube channel breaks even. So
I empathize. I get it. That's fair.
So,
very
yeah,
cool.
at some point I might try to do more live streaming and maybe even try Twitch at some point, but I just haven't brought myself to do it yet. But you're quite successful over on Twitch. How did you build up that following?
I mean, it's definitely a slow and steady process. I sort of had my heels in the ground for it probably about 10-ish years ago, because I had started streaming for a short bit of time and I stopped for a long time. Okay. But back then it was, not quite as like, you didn't have all this, like some people probably have the high tech stuff. I had like a game system and a like rickety computer setup, and like you didn't even get to see my face on there. And, friends came on and supported me. So I sort of started out with a bunch of followers from 10 years ago who are probably very inactive right now. I'll be honest. Didn't mean to, but it helped me get to.
We thought you guys were our friends.
I am friends with a number of them. They did, a bunch of them did come back and were like, "Oh my God, you're doing this again." I was like, "Yeah." But it's been fun building a community by just sort of being genuine.
Exactly.
And being very, I don't know, like I don't want to say I don't know how to be someone who's not myself, because at my heart, I'm an actor, obviously. But when it comes to this sort of thing, I just find that I connect better with people who are sort of genuinely themselves, and I perform better being myself. And while I'm a huge horror fan, I'm also like a huge goofy like nerd who loves all this other stuff that we talk about during the streams and between scares and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's very much more focusing on sort of making a community and making a place for people to come in and, again, forget about the stuff that's out there for a little while they're chilling out with me and these people. And I think that's really helped the community and the channel grow. It's just doing that and connecting with people who want sort of the same thing, just to have a good time, like making it. Would I love to make a career out of it? Sure. Why not? Like, who doesn't want to make a career out of their passion? Yeah. But right now it's just, I don't know. I just dig it when one of my friends is like, "Hey, I was having a rough night. I checked out your chat for a little bit and this made my night. And it was a really good time." And, that's the vibe I want to put out there into the world. And I think that that's what people are attracted to and are come to right now, especially. Yeah, that's neat. I pretty much have come to that conclusion too, is that even the YouTubers that I like to watch, none of them are putting on an act. They're all just being really genuine, It's major. It's a big thing, like having that connection. Yeah. And it takes a little bit of, I think, well, you probably know, it takes a little bit of skill and a little bit of work to be able to look into a camera and be yourself and actually connect with the people out there, and not get fixated on this device that's just staring at you. Yeah. I was to say, now that you say it, I don't think I've looked up into my camera the entire time. I've been looking like right at you, because I'm like, I can't do that. But absolutely. Drink la croix. Le meilleur boisson pour les gens. Oh, tu parles français.
Un peu, monsieur. Un peu. Un très peu.
That's like the only language I studied for any amount of time,
Right.
longer than like a year. So
Me too. I did it in high school. I've actually never been to France. But my French teacher said I had a pretty good accent.
oh, nice.
So,
That's awesome.
yeah. Yeah.
You seem like you're good at accents from what I've heard, just as a note.
Yeah. Well, I think that's partly from being a musician too, is I kind of try to hear what it takes to make that accent happen. And then I learn how to listen and just kind of do it like that. Yeah. So, well, okay. Now, are you able to get a little more personal
Oh gosh.
in front of all us folks out here?
Well, let's see what you got.
I can always throw it at you, and then you can just decline. But so, you did mention that you're definitely a member of the LGBTQ, and then there's a whole bunch of other letters after that now, right?
Yes.
I lost track.
I was going to say, it sort of depends on how far. I sort of just try to put a plus after a few letters for folks. I mean, there's a lot of representation to be had there.
Yeah.
But yeah, yep. I'm very much part of the G of the LGBT. Yep.
Maybe they should call it LGBTQ star, and then that would be everything else.
Everything else. Yeah.
Anyway, so how do you remember when it was when you realized, like, that you were a horror fan? Do you remember when it was when you realized that you were gay?
I think I had the striking and terrifying realization, weirdly enough, at least the start of it was probably around like 9 or 10 years old. I guess like when you start to sort of realize like, hey, romantic relationships are out there. Only I wasn't feeling the same way that all these other people were feeling, clearly based on what we were talking about. I would say like it was cemented for me probably the beginning of my high school, like my early teen years. It's like, no, this is definitely a thing. This is, I know what I'm thinking now.
Okay. So then during that, did you feel like you had to keep it secret, or were you able to be open about it?
For a little bit, it was definitely a gradual, like telling my friends, like my very close friends first, because it was like, what am I dealing with? I don't think I officially sort of started coming out en masse until it's still pretty early compared to a lot of life cycles for this, but I'd say about 17 or 18. So just before I left high school.
Okay.
Mostly because I was put in a position of not being able to really hide it anymore due to other elements in my life. And also it was sort of I'm going off to college soon. And I made it a point to go to a college that I knew was very like actively accepting. And I knew that it was going to be a place that I could travel to, not far away, but be safer there. So it was sort of one of those, I'm going to do this. Like, I kind of want people to know who I am as a person. So, I mean, I never really was like, hey, I am. It was more of like yeah, I am. Like, this is a piece of me that if it involves any of you, I guess you should know. And it just kind of got around.
So how did that work? Like, were your friends, like, for example, I had a friend of mine who's like in his 70s now.
Okay.
So he's like 15 years older than me. And like a year ago, he finally said, Matt, there's something really important I got to tell you sometime when we have some time. And I'm like, well, I got some time right now. You want to tell me now? And he goes, well, I'm gay. And I was like, I won't say his name, but I'll say, well, didn't anybody tell you that being gay is cool now? I mean, but why did it take you 30 years to tell me that, And it was really funny because you know what his answer was? Is we used to both go to this meditation center, and the meditation center our guru was a woman for one thing. So there were many feminists and stuff, and a lot of lesbians went to the center. And my friend goes, I never told anyone because I didn't want any of those lesbians to think of me that I was gay. I was like, what? He's like, I just want them to know me for who I am, you know? And anyway, the whole thing was like, it blew my mind. And I wasn't the least bit surprised. I was like, well, okay. You know?
Yeah.
But for him, it was a really big deal. And it took him that long to officially come out, to at least to me. And but he did tell me that that when he officially came out originally, it was like in the early 70s. And then he told me all these horror stories, you know, of why you had to stay underground and why you had to keep it secret during that decade. And so that's sort of where he grew up. So I could kind of see that's where he was coming from. But yeah, so like in your case, when you started telling your friends, were any of them like surprised, or were like, oh, well, like I had another friend that told me who I just met in Vegas, Star Trek Las Vegas last year, when he told me he was gay, and I was like, well, duh, I knew that the moment I met you. He's like, oh, really? Well, yeah, it's pretty obvious.
I was gonna say, so some people definitely have certain affects that it makes it a little easier to detect if so. Yep.
Yeah. So in your case, I mean, did you have any friends? Like, how did your friends react to it?
So my thing was I grew up hearing some of those horror stories before before anybody even knew. I grew up with, you know, there were some adults in my life who definitely talked about when they were growing up, they would beat up kids who they thought were gay. And, you know, some other stories and like derogatory things. So I heard
a real, sorry to interrupt, but my friend told me a really horror story. This is true horror, is that he knew somebody who told his parents that he was gay. And his parents freaked out. This was in the 70s. His parents freaked out and had him committed to Western State, which is the main psychiatric hospital in Washington State. And then you know what they did? He got a lobotomy to try to cure him of being gay.
Yep.
That's how insane it was back then.
Yeah. There's definitely, I mean, there's no lack of, that's very extreme, even compared to some of the stories I heard. But yeah, like, I mean, as a teenager, like you even hear about like people getting, you know, and I had my own, I definitely didn't have any super extreme stories. You know, I came out to my friends, they were a little surprised because I was very much underground, as we've been putting it, where like I had dated a lot of the girls in our friend circle. So, I mean, when I did come out, it wasn't it was sort of like, not like a huge shock or anything, but it was like, oh, really? Like, okay. You know, if you say so. And I still had a couple of people who were like, no, you're not. Like, you're not. You're just, you know, there was sort of a fad at my school. And I know it's at a lot of other schools too, but like there was sort of a like, or maybe not a fad, maybe it was just a phase that people go through at that age, where a lot of people were, you know, there's a lot of hormones. And sometimes you try things to see if they work and they don't. And it was sort of during that time when a lot of people were like, oh, I'm bisexual. Oh, I'm gay. Oh, I'm this. And a lot of my friends sort of receded from that and were like, nope, not for me. Totally fine. Like that didn't work out. So at that point, I had a few people who were like, no, you're not. Like, you're going to be one of the people who you've tried it and you're going to be done. And I was like, well, time's ticking. I'm now in my late 30s and I'm like, but my friends were pretty cool about it. My family, when I told my mom, she said, just don't tell your dad.
Yeah.
And we had a very, not to go too personal, but we had a very contentious relationship up until recently. And thankfully time has been very kind to both of us, emotionally and therapy wise for both of us, really.
You and your dad.
Yeah. To where, you know, he's come to realize a lot of the stuff that he had thought before was very much not productive, we'll say. I definitely had a couple of kids who, you know, I remember one time I was parked someplace. I stayed late at school, and I was parked at like a side parking lot that was a little off from the school. And I got into my car and turned it on, and then I was suddenly surrounded by like 3 other cars that were just like sort of like bullies from my school. And that was probably the most terrified I've ever been. Was like nothing happened. I ended up like driving over the little stone median, like tiny little stone median that was in front of and driving away. But like, you know, those things still sort of happened every so often. And, you know, I get it now too. Like, this isn't exactly the best climate to be like, yeah, I'm gay, unless you already have come out. But yeah, no, I thankfully had a pretty painless, maybe it was because I went off to school immediately afterwards, and found a whole bunch of people that I could relate with.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I think compared to a lot of people, I had a very painless reaction overall.
Okay. All right. So that, because I wonder, like, it seems like the biggest toll that a lot of people go through is just having to keep, you know, something so close to themselves and who they really are, to have to keep that secret for so long. It seems like that would do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
You know, emotionally.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Even the, I guess, relatively short time that I did, I went through a lot of emotional turmoil at that point. And it was, I mean, it didn't alleviate all of my teenage angst to get that out. But, you know, I've definitely known people who have gone through full marriages with women or men, and finally came to their admit their truth, I guess, is the best way I can put it. And, you know, again, I haven't heard any super painful stories of that for myself or for the people around me, but I have, you know, it's rough. It's at some point, sometimes some people can take it all the way to their grave. And if that's what you want to do, like, if that's what you want to do, who am I to tell you? But for the folks who sort of realize it when they're in their teens and they go through their whole life sort of faking a different sort of persona and then come to it, it's a lot. And it's a kind of large emotional toll, and it just sort of splashes out onto other people too. So it's very tough to keep that in, especially when everyone around you, especially at that age, is like, oh, well, I just want to find someone to love. Oh, I just want to like date this person and blah, 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 this and that. And you're like, yeah, I just want to read my books in the corner. Cool. So it's definitely, it's a lot.
Yeah. On the flip side, I'll say that I really enjoy my gay friends in a lot of ways the most, because the ones that have come out have gone through that whole journey. So they've gone through all the introspection, and they've figured out who they are to a certain extent, right? So they can talk deeply about stuff like that, and they're not putting on an act. Yep. So from that point of view, it makes them much more interesting of a person, to me at least. You know, obviously there's a certain amount of courage too.
Yep. That
you have to be able to just, you know, this is who I am, whether you like it or not, you know?
Yep. I mean, I do, not to step away from that point for a second, but I think that's true for everyone. I think it's very tough for certain things, especially, again, not LGBT, but like nerd community, for instance.
Okay.
That wasn't cool all the time. And occasionally, you know, again, being a game streamer in my late 30s, for instance, it's a little like you get the looks sometimes of like, oh, you play video games? And I'm like, yes, I grew up on these. It's not a big deal. But some people feel very like defensive about that. And, you know, I think but I agree with you. I think that in particular takes a lot of introspection to sit there and go, this is something that I need to deal with. or I need to keep it inside of me. And like, this is what my personality is going to sort of shape around. So what do I do?
So did you ever feel like there's something wrong with me? Did you ever have that thought?
Oh yeah, for sure. That when I was a teenager, especially. Again, I think separation from high school and going off and doing my own thing helped process a lot of that. Because I changed a lot in my late teens to early 20s as far as my perspective and things were concerned with that. But absolutely, like I said, the terrifying realization when you hit that age of realizing that romance is out there and these things are going to happen and you have attraction to people and you're like, no one else around me seems to have this thing. I am all alone and I have no one to talk to about it. What am I going to do? Like you suddenly have this big weight on your shoulders. And
Okay.
It's definitely like why am I not like everybody else?
Did you find it easier to talk to girls about it?
100%.
Okay, so they're much more understanding.
Well, and I mean, it does sort of make me wonder if a girl in my age at that point would have found it easier to talk to a boy about it at that point. But I know for me, it was much easier to talk about it because there wasn't the concern of, and this is still a concern every so often, but it's not as dire. There wasn't the concern of that person thinking that I was coming out to them because I was attracted to them, which adds a whole other layer of fear of telling guys at that age, because lots of them are like, oh, so what do you like me or something? It's like, no, I just want you to know who I am as a person. I mean, sometimes for some people, I'm sure it would be, but
what do you mean you don't like me? What's wrong with me?
and then it's like, why? Why don't
I
you
knew
like
it.
me?
I can do my hair different. I promise. It's not usually like this. It can happen like that. There we go. Is that better?
No, your swoop. It's gone. Oh no.
All right. Sorry. Oh boy, darn it! I shouldn't have done that.
No, it's back now. It's back now. You're good. But yeah, no, there's definitely like different layers of fear to that situation of like, how do I approach this like basis by basis?
Right. And then and then of course, like, what do you deal with? I know, like when I was in the 80s, high school for me was the 80s. So like I graduated from high school in 1984 and I lived on Bainbridge Island, and over there, there's no way you could be openly gay in our high school. Because there were just homophobic jokes all over the place. It was just standard part of the joke repertoire with just tons of gay jokes. And like, surprisingly, one of my friends was constantly telling these jokes, and they would talk about how they went to Seattle, and there was a guy that was sitting at this table, and he was crossing his legs, and I'm sure he was gay, But wouldn't you know, turns out later on, that guy who seemed to be such a gay hater, turned out he was gay. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if he even knew it at that time, or if he was just playing some mind game with himself or what. I mean, do you have any experience like that?
I've definitely known a couple of folks who from that time sort of came back and I don't talk to a ton of people from high school. I sort of separated from most of those people. Wish you well, but over in your corner, essentially.
Right. And that would be the late 90s, right?
That would be early 2000s. It would have been graduating at least. Like
so it's 20 years later.
Yeah. But I definitely had, I've definitely had at least one or two instances where folks were, I wouldn't even say the most vocal folks, but there were folks who brought up that like, oh, I might have said something in the past, or I might have done this, and now I'm bisexual, or I don't think I've had anyone actually say that they were fully gay. That's not the right way to say that. I'm sorry, but I don't think I've had anyone come up be like, oh no, I'm gay, but they've been like, oh, I'm bisexual, or I've had. I just heard that.
Lucky you. It's drained.
Oh no!
Nothing happened. I pulled the trigger and nothing happened.
You know what? That's Deus Ex Machina right there.
It already shot its wad. Sorry, folks. Okay.
It's 18 plus. But yeah, no, I've had a couple of those sort of instances, not like major incidents or anything or events, but like people who've sort of mentioned it. I'm like, okay, cool. But that said, again, I haven't had that much contact with folks from then. So like our school, we seem to have one person in each class who was out, and I ended up being the late bloomer who ended up being the one who was out in my class for, again, reasons.
For the entire class?
At least like sort of like well-known out.
Okay.
Like there were definitely others that, we would talk to every so often, and you sort of bonded with some of those folks. But I do remember someone when I was a senior, there was someone who was in the junior class who was like, yeah, no, they're out and proud. And then you had someone within the sophomore class who was like, okay, well, they're younger, but they're saying that they are, and they do this and they do that. And so clearly, and I don't want to say it wasn't a big deal, but like most people didn't make a big deal of it. There were definitely very vocal people, but I grew up in a very small town surrounded by fairly open-minded, and even in my community, I should say, I don't want to discredit my hometown. There was a very open-minded community, but in all of those, you still have folks who are very much not.
Yeah. Interesting. So maybe that's, well, see, to me, it seems like things have opened up quite a bit since the 80s. Like now it's much more, obviously more accepted. And like I said, I mean, like if you want to be the cool crowd, a straight white guy is not the cool table.
I think it depends on what table you're looking from, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, there's definitely, it's more widely accepted that it is a thing, I think, is what is what has helped.
Okay.
Like definitely looking around right now, I'm like, I'm nervous to tell certain people like my whole truth about myself.
Okay.
Like if I don't know them already, I might be like, I need to gauge you first to make sure you're not going to like, because I mean, there have been upticks in it the past couple of months, I should say. Like this general timeline, like, sure, absolutely. It's just, very, very recently. But I mean, I think that depends on where I'm in a very, very open-minded part of the world in the country.
So but you're like on Eastern time zone.
I am, but I am.
All the open people are on the West Coast.
Well, I've heard
in Seattle.
Now, I was going to say, in fairness, a lot of my friends are moving to Seattle, believe it or not. But I'm up near Boston and Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
So it's like,
yeah,
the like zone to sort of be in. So I will say I live sort of a charmed, like around me is pretty like 2 thumbs up ? All
right.
But I think it does depend on like where you're located at this point. I think both of us are in very good areas to have a very diverse and open-minded community around us.
Yeah,
for sure. And I like most of the straight white men around me, so I include them in the cool parties.
Except the ones that are dicks.
Except the ones that, well, I mean, there are dicks in every demographic, though. Let's just clearly say that really quickly. Listen, I'd invite you to a party. I like you.
Thanks.
You drink La Croix?
Of course, I drink La Croix. Yeah.
Perfect.
Je préfère La Croix. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So, like, then, I don't know. Have we spoken enough? I do have to teach a violin lesson in a half hour.
Oh, well, I mean,
yeah. So, like, how much of your identity would you say it really is to be gay? Like, do you have to declare that you're gay in order for somebody to truly know who you are?
Like, this is a good thing that I've kind of thought about, because I had somebody on Twitter months ago Haven't had this since. Thankfully, I don't have that many interactions like this. But months ago, I had someone say, well, why do you say that you're an LGBTQ streamer? Why don't you just say you're a streamer? I was like, I'll be honest. And this sounds like a little rough, but this is how I put it. I said, I'll be honest. It's a warning shot. It's sort of a, like, if you aren't going to gel with me because it's going to come out at some point. I'm going to talk about my significant other. I'm going to make a joke about me being gay. I'm going to say something.
Okay.
If you're not going to gel with that, I would prefer that we just keep our distance from each other. Just you sit over in your corner, I'll sit in mine, and that's totally fine. So is it like a huge part of my identity? I mean, I joke around about it as much as I think anyone else jokes around about their sexuality who is comfortable with it, wherever they lay on the spectrum. I see why other folks make it a larger part, because I think that helps people who are not comfortable resonate and maybe possibly feel more comfortable, whether they do come out or not, at least feel more comfortable that they're not alone. And that's another reason why I like to say that, is so that folks know that there are a lot of us out there.
Mm-hmm.
But is it a huge part of my identity? Not really. It's something that I'm very proud of. It's something much like any other part of me. I'm very proud of, being a horror fan. I'm very proud of being a good partner. I'm very proud of being, a good godfather. Like, I'm very proud of all of these parts of me. Sometimes I do have to put that toward the forefront a little bit, just to, I don't know. I dig the pockets of the community that I've been in, and I do like to show that I'm proud of that. And I guess I just like to show that I'm a different face, like another face, along with these folks. So I don't know how I would quantify it necessarily, but it is a part of my identity. It is a part of, like, my name tag at the very least. Is like, okay. Hello, my name is Matt. I am a gay horror streamer, entertainer, creator.
Voice actor.
I'd still put that under create. Well, we'll create at some point, but yeah, no, I just, I don't want anyone to feel alone, is what it comes down to.
Okay.
I'm just a very tired person in general.
Yeah. You don't come off as being tired to me.
Well, good.
You come off as having a lot of personality, and I'm very creative and very friendly and very approachable. And you got a click wit, especially when you got the game going.
I try. That's defense mechanisms. That's a whole other story altogether. Growing up, that also adapted into my personality, and now it's a good thing. But again, going back to assuming a certain role, because I grew up on certain TV shows, especially like anything written by Kevin Williamson in the 90s, where quick wit was what gay people did in those shows. And I've adapted it since, and it has become part of my personality. And I love that. I very much love that. It's just a genuine, natural part of me now.
You know what? I just had an idea.
Oh boy. Go on.
You, of course, know who Jim Nabors is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Somebody should cast you in a Jim Nabors biography.
Huh.
Like you could play Jim Nabors.
I don't know if I would have ever thought of that. Interesting.
I could totally see it, actually.
Okay.
Especially, also, you sing, and he is a great singer.
It's true. Interesting. You might have just opened up my repertoire a little bit there.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
I can totally see it. I could see you doing a Gomer Pyle.
Yeah. No, I could. Huh. All right. What a weird thought to have in my night. That totally unexpected.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's a great. Well, there's a guy. We got to wrap it up soon, but
Yeah.
Fascinating person. And I kind of was a kid when like Gomer Pyle was on TV. And so I always knew him as Gomer Pyle. But for some reason, it never clicked to me that he was also well known as this guy that had the most beautiful voice and could just sing and melt people's hearts. And I think his first role that became Gomer Pyle, he actually did that in the show. His character was like a goofy mechanic on like what's the Andy Griffith Show. Mm-hmm. But they even wrote it into the script that he also had a beautiful voice and could sing.
Huh.
So very early on in his TV career, that was already established.
Interesting. I didn't know that part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
And I don't know how long ago, how late in his career. Well, I remember he got accused of being gay and having an affair with Cary Grant or somebody like that.
Oh.
You know, and then he denied it. And then later he finally did come out and finally did admit he was gay, but he said he never had an affair with Cary Grant. That was all made up. And, but anyhow. That reminds me of another Matt. There's another guy named Matt who has a YouTube channel. You might know him, who he is, who talks all about gay issues. In fact, he talks about all the sitcoms of like the 70s that had gay characters in them. And he, of course, talks about the Golden Girls.
I believe, yes. I don't know, but I know my partner was watching through he has like a bunch of YouTube.
Right. It's his entire channel is all about this, and it's really popular. Like he wears like overalls sometimes, you know, and
I didn't get to watch any of those, but I did. I do remember him talking about that and talking about that series and saying I should check it out.
Yeah, I'm going to put that in I'll put a link in the description for that too. All right, maybe we should wrap it up because I do have to teach a violin lesson soon. And I haven't actually had dinner yet.
Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm trying to lose weight too. I went to a wedding last weekend and I gained like 5 pounds, and so.
Oh God.
It's kombucha. I'm drinking kombucha, a tiny bit of ahi, which is tuna.
Yeah.
That's it. No carbs. Maybe a few almonds, pickles.
I need that discipline.
The catch is whether I can keep it up long enough to get myself. My goal is to knock off like 7 pounds.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Not in a week, but you know.
Yeah. Well, health in a healthy way.
Of course, if you talk to my kids, they will say that their entire childhood, I was always saying I was on a diet. So when I say if I were to say I'm on a diet right now, my kids are all like in their 20s, it would probably trigger them, and they're like, "Oh God, Dad."
Again.
Anyhow. All right. So how do we wrap this up? So also we need to put a link to your Twitch, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then if you haven't subscribed, be sure to subscribe to my channel, Pranakasha Productions. And if you haven't liked, be sure to give us a like. And you can even share us. Be sure to share us, and even leave a comment, start a conversation, and then go over to Matt's Twitch, the other Matt, that Matt, or maybe it's that way. I always forget. I think it's that way. All right, and then become a subscriber to your Twitch, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're super generous, you can donate for other people to become subscribers for free. They have that on Twitch. And then they also have this beautiful thing where you can buy these magical things called bits. And you can throw the little sprinkly bits at your favorite content creator like Matt, just like little pixie dust. Yeah. And then all those bits turn themselves into money. And then it all goes into Matt's bank account, right?
And then it goes right back into the stream, to be fair.
Right.
So
but we need to support our artists.
Yeah.
Yeah. And our gamers and our creative people and the people that we love. So you're on the East Coast. You said you're in Boston.
Yep.
So,
the general area. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool part of town.
Yeah.
Part of planet Earth, I should say. Yeah. Well, it's been fun. It's been so fun talking to you.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad we got to dig into the second half of my interviews always is when we get to the meat of it, and we get into the really interesting stuff. So I'm glad you were willing to go there with me.
Yeah, thanks for
I really
chatting.
Appreciate it. All right. Do you know the Vulcan salute, the live long and prosper thing that else Trekkies do?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Perfect.
I was going to say I know that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Live long and prosper, my friend. Peace and love. And if you ever really do get into Star Trek and stuff like that, be sure to let me know, and then I'll encourage you to go to conventions and stuff. Like, would you go to like Comic-Con or something like that?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Okay. I didn't go this because it was just this week, but
it's fair.
Maybe we'll meet in person at one of those cons. That would be cool.
Say possibly. I'm spreading my con influence, so we're working on it.
Okay. And then I'm serious. I will at some point. I mean, my Star Trek fan series takes me forever to do an episode. It's like been almost a year since I've done one. So it might be like, if I say like in the next episode, that might be like 3 years from now. But I might hit you up to be a guest star if you're still into it.
Hey, I'm open.
All right, sir. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
Till we meet again.
Pranakasha production. Fantastic creations emerging spontaneously from the space of life. For the benefit of all beings everywhere, we gotta change.